Hello YouTube, my name is Nero, and today we have some Star Wars Battlefront, and what we're going to be doing with this video is giving you guys my very early impressions of the game so far. I put a couple of hours into the multiplayer so far, and I figured, hey, I'll give you guys my early impressions, discuss different aspects of the game, and just give you guys my general thoughts and opinions towards Star Wars Battlefront. So the game itself actually released on November 17th, which happens to be my birthday, kind of a fun little tidbit there, but I actually did not end up playing it until today, which is November 20th. I ended up putting it off for a couple of days because there are so many games out right now that I'm like actually ridiculously backed up in terms of all the games I'm trying to play at once here. So I finally put aside some time. I sat down like, all right, let's try this out. I've been looking forward to Star Wars Battlefront. I played the beta, and I thought the beta was fun, but the beta itself was very limited. And I was excited to see how they had changed around things between the beta and the full release of the game. So my biggest fear for Star Wars Battlefront turned out to not come true, which I was worried because of the beta, because we had a very limited number of blasters using the beta. There was a very limited number of game modes and maps. Like, there was just a very limited beta in general. I think we can all agree Star Wars Battlefront beta really didn't have a lot to it, right? Especially if you compare it to like the Call of Duty Black Ops 3 beta, which is fresh in my mind. So I was worried that the game itself wasn't going to have a lot of content to it, similar to what happened with Titanfall. But it turns out that's not the case. There is actually a wide variety of weapons here in this game. I think in total there's like 10 like base blasters you can play with, and there's a bunch of different ones you can get using the star cards system, which is kind of similar to the Titanfall burn card system, but instead of them kind of going whenever you use them, they're basically permanent, and they're kind of like extra perks that you get to put on your character, and they have a cooldown after you use them and things like that. So there is actually a wide variety of weapons in the multiplayer, which I thought was pretty awesome. I was worried that was not going to be the case. There's, I believe, 9 different game modes, and there's actually about 12 maps. Now, I could be wrong on this. I went through and counted, but I could actually be wrong on the different game modes and the different maps that are available to us. But yeah, so there's actually a wide variety of stuff for you to do here in this game, which is like the biggest thing I was worried about. Like, is this going to be a game that has like 4 or 5 different weapons, and then we're all just going to get tired of it really quickly? Turns out that's not the case, and that's pretty awesome. So my favorite game mode so far has been Supremacy, and that's what you're going to be seeing the majority of here in this video. So Supremacy kind of plays similar to like a tug-of-war style game mode. It's very much a war style game mode if you're familiar with that game mode from Call of Duty, or maybe if you played Advanced Warfare. It's kind of similar to the game mode Momentum. All right, it plays in that kind of respect, where basically you're going to be fighting for these 2 objectives in the middle. You're going to be defending one as well as attacking one, and if you can take control of the one that you're supposed to be attacking, which you take control of it just by kind of hanging out in that area and like filling up the bar essentially, then you get to move on to their next objective. Then eventually they're going to run out of objectives, but they can always try to make a comeback by taking your objectives and pushing you back, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a twist on the old tug-of-war style game mode that's actually kind of common in first-person shooters or third-person, because this game is available to be played in first or third-person, depending on which one you would prefer. I like to go first-person, right? Third-person just throws me off. I don't like it. I don't like being in third-person. I'm not used to it, right? I don't come from like a third-person background. I come from a first-person background, and as a result, I like to play that. I'm playing here on PC, so I went to first-person. I cranked the FOV up to like a 95, and it just, oh, it's so freaking good looking, guys. Ultra settings and everything. Mwah. So freaking awesome looking. But yeah, so it's essentially a nice twist on the war style game mode, where, you know, your teammates can try and push forward and try and take their objectives, but at the same time they're going to be pushing towards your objectives, and there's 2 objectives at every single place, and that's going to make it so, you know, both teams aren't just fighting for one area, because this is a 20-on-20 game mode and things can get ridiculous. And to kind of compensate the 20-on-20 game mode, this game mode actually has a bunch of vehicles, which you're going to be seeing that happen a lot in a lot of the game modes here in Star Wars Battlefront. Is vehicles are very much a part of it, whether they're going to be land vehicles, where you have like these, now I'm not a Star Wars guy, keep in mind, but you have like these like chicken looking things with the 2 legs, and, and they just come walking around, and they're really big and they're powerful, but they can be taken down pretty quickly with a launcher. So you got like land vehicles, you have air vehicles, which are ridiculously hard to control. I don't like that at all. I'm very bad at those. I mean, you see some people do very well in them. Not me, man. Not me. I am bad in the vehicles. Whenever I see like a vehicle drop on the ground, because there's a very clear distinction whether or not you're going to be going for like a normal power up, or if you're going for like a vehicle and be able to have access to a vehicle. I avoid the vehicle ones like the plague, man. I'm bad. I just basically like crash those things into like the first thing I see without meaning to. Like, it's horrible. It's really hard to control those things. I'm very bad at it. There's actually an entire game mode that's like dedicated to only vehicle warfare. So if it is your thing, if you want to get better with it, or if you are already good at it and you like just want to go dominate people in vehicles, or if you would like to just kind of experience flying around in ships and whatnot, because that's a big part of Star Wars, then you can definitely do that. There is a game mode specifically for that. But my initial impressions of the game so far is it's a pretty solid game. I would say it's a pretty very solid FPS, but it's a first-person shooter and third-person shooter, so we'll just call it a shooter. It's a very solid shooter. I think it's pretty fun. Now, is it going to be making waves? I'm not so sure so early. I mean, right now, it seems like a fun game, but is it better than Call of Duty? Is it better than Battlefield? Is it better than Titanfall? Is it better than CSGO? Like, I don't know about that. I think it does bring a lot of unique aspects to the table. I think it is going to be able to stand on its own 2 feet and kind of become a genre or a game in and of itself, because a lot of people like to compare games, and I don't think it's bad to compare video games. I don't think it's bad to say, oh, well, this game's kind of like Battlefield, or some things in this thing are similar to Titanfall. I don't think it's bad to compare that stuff. It's actually very valid information a lot of the time. But I will say that this game feels different. You know, it doesn't feel like Battlefield. It doesn't feel like Titanfall. It doesn't feel like Call of Duty. It kind of feels like taking all of them combined. You know, there's different aspects of this game that kind of make it feel like you're playing Call of Duty sometimes, and other times it feels like you're playing Battlefield when the vehicles are getting involved and whatnot, and the big, 20 on 20 is happening. And then you have the whole star card system and the hands system, where you basically get to pick your star cards and you put them in your hand, and those are going to be the 3 things available to you throughout the entirety of that match. That's very similar to Titanfall. So I think it takes a lot of inspiration from a lot of different great shooter games out there and tries to combine them into this Star Wars universe, which I think that's the big selling point for this game. If you were a fan of Star Wars, how often do you guys get Star Wars games? It doesn't happen very often. So I think a lot of you guys are pretty ecstatic about this, and a lot of people are loving Star Wars Battlefront as a result, because it's a Star Wars game. They're able to fly around in their vehicles. They're able to be there on the ground. They're able to go into this Imperial versus Rebel fight. They're able to play as Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker and all that stuff, and they're excited to be able to play with that. For me personally, I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I'm like looking at it from like the outside looking in, and I'm just looking at it as how good of a shooter is this. I think it's actually a very fun shooter. Lots of lasers, lots of pew pew pew. It's really fun in that respect. There's a lot of things that aren't quite as intuitive as I would like them to be. Like, some things aren't exactly explained very well, but I actually skipped the tutorial, so I recommend actually playing the tutorial, because there's some of that stuff will probably be answered in there. But overall, I'm really enjoying the game. It could be the honeymoon phase, but I think even here in this video, I was able to point out some positives as well as some negatives of the game so far. I'm looking forward to further developing my opinion by playing the game a little bit more, but just right now, about 2 hours in, I think the game's pretty fun. I think it has a lot of unique things. At the same time, it has a lot of things that we're familiar with in the shooter scene, which kind of makes it, the transition period of like getting adjusted to the game, makes it a little bit easier. So let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about Star Wars Battlefront so far? A lot of the reviews for Battlefront definitely seem pretty split. If I go to like Metacritic, for example, there is, they have a score of 70, and there's a lot of negative reviews, as well as some positive ones, but there's definitely a lot of people saying that the game is either great, or they're saying it's like terrible. IGN gave it an 80. It's like, there's a lot of people up there saying it's kind of like a 4 out of 5 game. There are a lot of people saying it's like an 8 out of 10, stuff like that. So overall, I think the majority of people are enjoying it, but there definitely is a lot of negative criticisms of the game so far, and I'll definitely be interested to see where you guys fall in that spectrum and what you guys think about Star Wars Battlefront. So I hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and if you did, remember to leave a rating. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.